This is the Canon C400 review, and today we're painting. The top line specs are that it has a brand new sensor offering a triple base ISO. It's an RF mount, full frame, so compatible with all of the RF lenses, and it shoots 6K 60p in RAW. But we'll get deeper into those specs later on in the video. If you want to keep up to date with all of the content on the brand new camera releases as they come in, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The C400 has a brand new sensor which offers 6K recording, which is obviously wonderful because it's a nice large resolution. Even the 4K that the camera produces is actually oversampled from the 6K, so it's utilizing that 6K sensor and then outputting a 4K image, so it's going to look a little bit crisper and a little bit better than your standard 4K. But the thing that I'm really excited about when it comes to this new sensor is triple base ISO. All cameras have a base ISO when you're recording, and that is basically going to be the ISO where you see minimal noise and maximum dynamic range. This camera offers 16 plus stops of dynamic range, which is huge and much more than the standard camera, so it's perfect for filming in contrasty environments. Usually cameras might have a dual base ISO. We've seen that quite commonly in cameras of recent years. That means that they have one ISO which is optimized for bright shooting and one ISO that's optimized for dark shooting. The third one that they've brought in on this C400 is basically in the middle for when you're shooting in an environment that's sort of bright and sort of dark. This is amazing because it means that actually you get more flexibility of controlling your ISO. Previously, you didn't have so many options to choose from, and you might actually have to change your NDs, or you might have to change your aperture to achieve the correct exposure. But now you can crank that ISO into that middle range, and it just allows for more flexibility, which means that you don't have to change the other variables. When it comes to the actual numbers of these ISOs, they vary dependent on the recording modes that you're using in the camera. I'll give you the details for C-Log just because I think that's probably what is most commonly going to be used on this camera. The lower ISO is 800, the middle one is 3200, and the higher one is 12,800. You can imagine being able to shoot at 800 ISO, 3200, or 12,800 means that you're so flexible to ensure that you're retaining all of that information in terms of dynamic range and keeping noise to a minimum. So the talent hasn't actually arrived yet, but we've lit the location and we're getting the odd establisher. And this is, I think, a wonderful time for me to start really thinking about what codecs and resolutions I want to be recording my media in. So I'll tell you what the camera can perform. Well, most notably, it shoots in that 6K RAW 60p, which I spoke about earlier, which of course is amazing. 6K resolution, slow motion, RAW codec, it's all the buzzwords. That's really, really impressive. You can also shoot in 4K up to 120p for 4 times slow motion, and that's in RAW again. When it comes to codecs, there's pretty much 3 main options you're going to choose from. So there's the RAW that I mentioned earlier, there's XF-AVC, and then there's XF-HEVC. And these are all quite customizable as well. So you don't just film in RAW, you can film in RAW HQ, ST, or LT, and that will just sort of vary depending on how high quality and how large the media files that you're producing are. You've got XF-AVC, and then you've got XF-AVC-S. So even amongst those codec wrappers that we have, there are a few options for you to choose from. So for example, if you wanted to record in XF-AVC, but you didn't want such large files, you could actually record in XF-AVC-S, and then that would deliver slightly smaller files, which will be easier to process in the edit. And you can film all of those that I just said in either all intra or long GOP. The C400 has dual pixel CMOS AF2, which has been improved over the previous Canon Cine range, so you're going to see better performance when it comes to using autofocus over some of their older models. This has been especially useful today when I've been filming with Ernesto. That's because of the new AF subject detection modes that they've got. They've got animal detection, which has not actually been very useful today, but they also have face, eye, head, and body. And that body detection is new to this camera. This has been very useful when I've been recording my wides of Ernie, because I can stand further back and I don't want eye detection on, because if he looks away from the camera, then of course the camera is going to lose its eye and it could lose focus. Utilizing that body detection is very useful for those wide shots, because that's the bit of the image I want sharp. That's the bit of the image that's going to retain in the shot for the entirety of the time. So it's really nice that you have all of that control when it comes to AF. One of the nicest things that I've just noticed using this camera is because I've been switching lenses a few times. I've been using the 35, the 85, and the 24-70. When I've been using the 24-70, it doesn't have as shallow of an f-stop, so the image is obviously naturally quite a bit darker because I'm shooting quite shallow. And just being able to just press this and the NDs come up is just so useful. I love shooting on cameras with internal NDs, and it's so nice that this camera has them. One thing I'm noticing which is super cool is I've been mostly shooting in manual focus. I do like using manual focus, but even when you're shooting in manual, when I've been filming Ernesto and it's been picking up his eye, and it shows me that it's picking up his eye, which is so useful because let's say if I was missing focus, I can just click that on the lens and it goes immediately from manual focus to autofocus, and I can see that the eye detection was basically already taking place before I even hit the autofocus, which is so useful. It just means that you know exactly that if you're going to switch the camera into AF, you're going to get good performance. So I want to talk to you guys about IBIS, because this camera doesn't have any. And I've been filming handheld quite a lot today, and I've had really good performance. There's a tiny bit of shake, but the kind of shake I like, the kind of shake I'm shooting handheld to get, but not that additional rattly shake. I mean, right now I'm filming a shot at 70mm. It's a detail shot. I'm really trying to capture all of the textures within the paint, and it's smooth. And that's primarily because I'm using an RF lens. The RF lenses have IS built into them, and it's very good. So it's doing a lot of the work for me. But you also have digital stabilization within the body. So there was a shot earlier where I was filming Ernesto and I wanted to film a track back where I walk backwards as he looks down the lens. And it was a bit too shaky without the electronic stabilization. So I turned that on and it looks pretty clean. You can have a look for yourselves now. I know the previous ones had IBIS, so people probably expected it for this body. And IBIS can be nice, but I just do think that actually most of the uses of this camera, IBIS isn't going to be that big of a deal, but I'd be very interested to hear about what you think. So we've finished up the majority of the shoot, so I thought it was a nice time to tell you all about this camera body and the form factor. Of course, it's a pretty standard cine cam from the C range in terms of the form factor. It's nice and big. It's actually quite a bit lighter than the previous models, coming in at 200 grams lighter than the C500 or the C300 latest models, which is wonderful. And that's made quite a big difference when I've been handheld shooting today. You have the standard side handle and the top handle. One of the things I wanted to mention about this is that they actually both come with the body, whereas some previous cameras, you don't get the top handle included, and they're obnoxiously expensive, if I'm honest. So it's really nice that you get that included with the initial camera purchase. You've of course got your standard connections that you're going to expect to see in a camera like this. So you've got your XLR ports, your HDMIs, your Ethernet ports, your SDIs. There's so much connectivity with this camera, which is wonderful. All of the controls are on the left-hand side of the body. This is basically because Canon told me it's been designed for use for a single operator, and I've actually found that to be the case. It's quite nice because sometimes when you're testing out a new camera, I don't get long with these cameras to sort of learn all the nuances of them. It can be hard to find something quickly, but just knowing every single control I could ever possibly want is on this side of the body makes it really quick and easy. And I can imagine just getting that muscle memory down if I shot on this camera all the time. In terms of media, you've got CF Express and SD cards, so you can choose the media that you want. You've got tally lamps and you've got the tally frame indicator, so you can see just on the outside of your monitor when you're actually recording. Very useful. We've all made that mistake before and we don't want to be making it again. There's plenty of multicam options for anybody intending on using this body for studio use, and that's because you can control up to 5 different camera groups with 4 cameras per group. We've finished the shoot now, and I just want to go into a couple more specs which I didn't have time to delve into. The first one is the fact that this camera is RF mount full frame. This has a huge amount of benefits. The RF mount has incredible autofocus, the lenses that they've made for it are really nice, but it also has issues. There aren't that many RF lenses at this point in time, therefore if you buy the camera, you're not going to have a huge range of glass to choose from, especially when it comes to cine glass. Luckily, they also have an RF to PL adapter which you can buy, so you can use all of your PL cine glass with the camera, which is wonderful. It opens up many more options for you to actually stick a nice lens on the front of your camera, but you will need to buy that adapter upon release if you want to use all of your pre-existing lenses. So there are options for you to choose from, but it will come at that additional cost. But what did I think of actually using the camera? Well, it's really nice to use, especially for a single operator. It's super just usable. I didn't have to faff around, even though, I don't shoot on these systems all the time. It came really naturally to me. I also can't get enough of this triple base ISO. Being able to shoot at a multitude of different ISOs and ensuring minimal noise and maximum dynamic range is a feature which I wish more cameras had, and I hope that we see more of this in the future because it's been a joy to use today. And finally, the video options. The fact that you can shoot in 6K RAW. Even the 4K is oversampled from 6K, so you know that you're going to get really crisp images. You often hear filmmakers speak about the fact that they don't necessarily want more pixels. We don't need 8K video all the time, but what we want is better looking pixels. And having that 4K oversample from the 6K is going to offer stuff like that, which just makes it a dream to work with and produce some stellar images. But who do I think this camera is for? Well, in some ways I think it's fairly obvious. It's your pro level shooter. Anybody that wants to work in TV, anybody that wants to work on large commercials, anybody that does a lot of studio work, this camera will get you in the door to get some of those jobs, which is just fantastic. I think for somebody that perhaps really wants a RED, this could be a really good option for you because it's significantly cheaper than a RED, but it also offers a lot of the same features like being able to shoot in 6K RAW, and it additionally has Canon's amazing autofocus system, which REDs don't offer. Therefore, if you're looking for your next big cinecam upgrade, I think you'd be crazy not to be considering the C400. Make sure you check out Ernesto's incredible work. Thanks for watching.
My name is Ernesto Moise Gallardo, and I'm a visual artist and musician. I always was just really into comic books and animation. Always so fascinated by the crazy colors and the idea of world building. Sometimes for me it's more of a way to just release emotion and process thoughts. Other times it literally is just a laugh. I just fancy creating something that looks really stupid or really surreal or absurd or anything like that. The reason why I want to create is it doesn't make any sense to do anything else but that. It's the way like sometimes I communicate with myself. And I think that's why anyone should really create. It's just because they can. And they should if they want to.